Well, well, well. Finally, after a long, long wait, we have Louise Evans today. Hi, Louise, and thank you very much for accepting my invitation.
My pleasure. Absolutely.
Louise Evans brings over 2 decades of experience working as a global executive coach and leadership facilitator with major international organizations such as Gucci, wow, Whirlpool, Enel, Ferraro, Fiat, British Gas, Honeywell. The list is long. Founder and director of the 5 chairs, my major inclination. Well, Louise, before we navigate through your journey, I would love to know something about the upcoming project that you're working on, Words and Swords.
Oh, Words and Swords. Yes, that's actually very difficult to pronounce. Words and Swords. This is something that I'm part of a group of women of an organization which is EWMD, an organization for women in business. And we're actually talking about the power of words, how words can damage people and how words can soothe people. And I think it's really about every day we're communicating, but how much time do we actually spend thinking about the impact that our words have on other people? Because words are vibrations. And if you're talking about things like, if you're talking about love and happiness and joy, you bring certain types of vibrations into the world which affect you and the people around you. And this has all been scientifically proved, actually. But if you talk about hate and strife and trouble, then those words have the opposite effect on people. And therefore, on the environment immediately around you. It's fascinating, the work that is complex work and study that has been done on understanding how, because we are all vibrations, the impact that it has in our DNA, which is in every cell of our body. So the more we choose words which are virtuous, the more we manage to actually create more virtuous climates to live in, whether it's at work or at home in the family or in the street.
Wish you luck on that. I so look forward to know more once that completes. Yeah. Now, to start off, people, travel, and performing arts. A large piece of your happiness, as you've described. Tell us something about your journey with performing arts.
Well, yes. I feel as though from a very early age, myself and my brothers, we were always on stage doing something or other. And I have my parents to thank for that, because in fact, my mother, I remember she recounted the story that one day I was sitting on a swing in the garden, a swing attached to the tree, and I was singing away to myself. And she said, "Oh, I can hear a voice there." So she sent me to singing lessons. And that then led to playing in an orchestra, learning the cello, playing the guitar. So that was the whole musical area of my life, which is so dear to me. But then that led on to acting and theater and reading poetry. And so I spent most of my life in my junior and secondary school doing extracurricular activities like that. And I felt that I was nervous all the time because, you know, before going on stage, I had the nerves. And so I felt I spent most of my early life nervous, and so was my mother. but then I chose to do theater at university, and I studied theater and languages. And so it became a very important part of my life. And I think my parents invested in all of us to help us be able to express ourselves in public, which is one of the big fears that most people have. And I still have that fear to a certain extent, but it was certainly a very, very good grounding for the work that I do. So I use I use performance and entertainment a lot in my training. I use music as well. So I feel very comfortable in those areas because of the work I did when I was a younger child.
That's so encouraging by your parents,
Yeah.
and so much easier to work with your training and that journey.
Yes. Well, actually, you know, I was a useless actress. You know, but I'm good in my natural state. Let's say I can amuse people in my natural state, but I'm not very good when I'm doing somebody else, if you know what I mean.
Exactly, exactly. I understand it. That line helps me recall uh, my close friends who also happens to be an Italian, Francesco. I
Ah,
remember helping, he suggesting me to start off before the camera. And when I am all prepared, I know I am hopeless. But when I'm natural,
yes,
then it just flows.
that's it.
I am me.
Yeah,
And yeah, I'm all good to go.
exactly. Yeah, absolutely
Right.
right.
Born to Welsh parents in England,
Mm.
you left home in the early 20s.
Yeah, I was, yeah, but
Okay.
yes, my family's Welsh. My brothers are Welsh. They were born there. I was born in England, but I'm proud of my Welsh blood. um, and I think I had amazing parents. They really allowed us to do experiment with life. I mean, I very early on knew that I wanted to go abroad. I wanted to see different cultures. One of the reasons I enjoyed my university time was I could spend a year in France studying the French language, but also teaching English there, which was a lot of fun. So that was the first time when I really moved into a whole different culture, which was a hell of a shock, actually. I mean, it was the French and the English are quite different, have different approaches to many things, and I wasn't prepared for that. Even though I had done a little bit of traveling beforehand, this was like really immersing myself in a new culture. And it was absolutely uh, formidable as an experience, and it was life-changing. When I came back after that and finished my degree, I thought I want to go abroad again, and that's in fact what happened. I then traveled to Germany, which was again a very different experience because the German culture is extremely different to the French culture, to the English culture,
Exactly.
and we're a country, we're all next door to each other, you know. So but after 2 years I realized it wasn't however much I loved the experience, it wasn't the culture that I felt most at home in. And I knew deep down I had to go to a Mediterranean culture where to feel at home. And so that was a toss-up between, well, the Mediterranean, let's think of Spain or Italy. I also thought of Japan for the ultimate challenge in diversity. But in fact, Italy won, and I've now been in Italy, living here for the last almost 32 years, very happily.
Wow. Italy, I can always recall my visit. I will never forget.
Yes.
A career in language and communication training to an entrepreneur in Florence, Italy.
Mm.
What made this move?
Yes. I think there was a fascination always with language, having studied theatre and languages. Actually, I'll tell a wonderful story because my father, again, was very important in my whole career by just giving me some gentle advice, because I was adamant in wanting to study only theatre at university. And he said to me, well, you know, maybe you should do a joint honors, maybe have another subject up your sleeve, you never know. So I followed his advice and I followed languages and theatre. And it was the best thing I ever did, because then I got very interested in teaching English as a foreign language through theatre.
Mm.
And so I developed that. And then when I came here, I started doing communication training and language training in companies. And then the whole thing blossomed. I was traveling a lot. I mean, one of my favorite passions is travel. And I think I've visited about 79 countries in the world now. because it's like, you know, when I get on a plane and go to another culture, then the brain becomes so much more interesting. It has to read all the new signals around it. And in fact, also, when I go with my husband, we have great new conversations because we're out of the domestic scene and we're into new things that the brain hasn't learned to classify yet. So it's beautiful to see, to be in a place where the brain is trying to interpret what it's seeing rather than jumping to conclusions. So I love travel also for that reason, is to go back to the pureness of experiencing the mind in that pure, curious state. And so then it led to working in organizations around how do you manage cultural diversity, which is one of my favorite subjects ever. You know, if you are born in England, like me, I mean, I'm what they call a cultural deviant. Not that I take drugs or stuff like that, but, you know, I am British, but I've lived in other cultures, and now I've been living in Italy for 30 years. So I have deviated from my original culture. And I feel I am a much better person for it. You know, it's a combination of the Anglo-Saxon culture and the Mediterranean culture come together. I've learned so much from the Italians, which has made me a much more rounded person. So one of the things I love most is to help people see the beauty and the value in other cultures, and to help people stop the judgmental thinking about other cultures, but looking for the similarities and the beauty of the differences. You know, so that's always been one of my favorite things. So I did a lot of work in organizations, helping cultures, international cultures and teams across cultures, learning to understand one another, because the best teams in the world are undoubtedly cross-cultural teams, cross-functional teams with a high level of trust. And they're the worst thing in the world if there's no trust. So I love the work of trying to get people to understand one another so that they can leverage their diversity and be creative and innovative.
I love what you said and wouldn't agree more. The best of the teams come out in a diverse culture, and the best of everything comes out in a heterogeneous culture. Well, my family exactly happened to be this way. And that's how I found myself connecting and adapting. My father from a different background, my mother from a different background. So it was cross-cultural aspect. And we were raised with English at home, because both wouldn't speak each other's language, though they belonged to the same country.
Interesting.
And a common lingua franca was the only thing. And that paved the way for all the children at home. And even with the companies that I work, I absolutely accept diverse cultures helps you to bring the best of you, and you are able to adapt to anybody and everybody. Look at the best things, right?
I think that's it.
Great. Cross-cultural diversity management. You've mentioned these cultural shocks. And what are these shocks? I'm quite curious to know.
Well, I think, you know, when we go into a new context, there is a period where you go through a sort of, it's a bit like a relationship with another human being. You go through there are different phases. If you go into a very different culture, there can be an immediate shock. Well, I mean, for something very, very simple. You come out of a culture like England, where rules and regulations are pretty universalistic and most people follow rules and regulations. So something very simple is you go to a pedestrian crossing and you have certain expectations about what will happen when you put your foot on the pedestrian crossing. So in England, I know that if I put my foot on the pedestrian crossing, automatically people are going to stop. So when you take that for granted and you go into into other cultures, I came into Italy, and I behaved in my normal British way and put my foot on the pedestrian crossing had no impact at all. The cars just continued crossing back and forth. And I thought, what? I mean, there were several things going on through my mind. What are these people doing? They're completely unruly. And number one, this is a completely unsafe culture. How do I cross the road? So I actually stepped back and I watched the Italians to try and get some ideas of how to cross a road. I mean, that's pretty fundamental. And I saw all sorts of things happening. I saw people walking out into the street with their hand out like that, just stopping the traffic, which is something you'd never do in England, you know. And then I saw something else. I saw people sort of going on to the pedestrian crossing and checking with the drivers. There was sort of negotiation going on, but who's going to be the strongest? And so, because the Italians obviously will never run people over, but there was this negotiating. So you see the person going forward and a little back and then forward and then continuing. And I thought, oh my God, this is hard work. And the last thing I saw, which really shocked me, was an elderly lady standing, waiting to go across. And the car stopped. And she looked at the car and she just told the car to go on. And so I thought, okay, I don't get this culture. I have to go home and sit on my bed and contemplate a little bit. What is happening here? So,
well,
you know.
Then you would need to visit India.
Oh, I've been.
Traffic, crossing. Well, I guess I do not want to say much.
Well, you know, Italy is a fantastic preparation for India. I have been to India and that is amazing. It's such a challenge initially, and you have to play the rules. If you don't learn the rules of the culture, you're lost. So the beauty of the shock is about, it's like, oh my God, what's going on here? Then you go through a honeymoon period with the culture where you fall in love with it. But then you get down, like in any relationship, to the nitty gritty. And then it's about, can I really live here long term? Does this suit me? And certainly with Italy, it was the culture. Like in the first 3 months, the shock was really quite high level. But then I realized that I could be an anarchist in Italy. I could break the rules and people would understand, because most people are doing the same thing anyway. And now that wasn't possible. I mean, that was impossible in England. So I was able to play with my life in a way I'd never been able to before. So, and also, when you leave your own culture, you see it from afar and you learn to appreciate it. You learn to appreciate what you like about it and what maybe you like less about it. And I think you can only do that. It's like the fish has to come out of his bowl in order to appreciate what's going on in its bowl. Because when you're immersed in it, you can't really see it. So I learned so much about what it means to be British by living in France and Germany and in Italy, which then helped me help other people, you know, look at themselves and question themselves. And it's a never-ending journey, that one.
Yeah, absolutely. Your project, there have been so many of them, and your mentors, that really is such an intriguing journey, include extraordinary spiritual influencers. Thich Nhat Hanh, my favorite, Marshall Rosenberg, the founder of Nonviolent Communication.
Yes.
I'd like to know your encounter with Hanh and its influence on your work.
Yes.
How has it impacted?
Thich Nhat Hanh, what an extraordinary man. I had the privilege to attend about 4 or 5 of his silent retreats. When I say silent, it's you go for a week. And I actually went to America and I attended a retreat of 800 people. I had no idea there were going to be 800 people there. And when I arrived, I thought, oh my God, I'm going to turn around and go back to Italy. This is too much. But of course I didn't. And we were near, in Colorado, near Boulder. What an amazing experience. We were up on the top of a hill in Estes Park. And very early in the morning, about 800 people were meditating. You know, when he does his retreats, the police in the towns nearby where he does his retreats are so grateful to him, because with the energy of people working on themselves, meditating, and going down into the deeper levels of their being, reduces the level of crime by 40%. Can you imagine? So, I mean, just to be in the context, and then, you know, you are in silence, but he is speaking to you, and also his monks are talking to you. So you have a chance to, in that silence, to really delve into yourself and get into deep contact with yourself. And of course, all sorts of things can bubble up. And his monks are there to help you as your own truths surface. So for me, it was absolutely essential to work on myself, because I was aware there were some behaviors about myself I didn't like, and also I had a fairly conflictual relationship with my mother, and I wanted to work on myself in that relationship with her. So Thich Nhat Hanh, Marshall Rosenberg, Eckhart Tolle, these men were extraordinary teachers and healers for me, and so my own work then became a mixture, a conglomerate of everything that I had learned from them. And I think over the years, everything settled in me, and then it was my turn to bring something into the world as a form of gratitude to what I had learned from these extraordinary people.
Han plays a very important role in my life.
Yeah.
Yes, I practice meditation, and there's not a single program that I miss. And monk philosophy as a whole interests me, and I work on it as much as possible. I guess that is what has helped me walk through so many aspects, and as you rightly said, work on myself. Yes. To accept so many things and just move on.
Yes, exactly.
Brightly though, yes.
Yeah.
Finally, to the best aspect, that is the 5 chairs, 5 choices, your first book where you have invested 10 years of your time.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
I think what happened was I look back, and I had been working on myself for a long time. I mean, I started serious work on myself when I was 30, when I came to Italy, and I read a book. A friend of mine, dear friend of mine, gave me a book by Krishnamurti, extraordinary scholar, Indian scholar, about the beginnings of learning. And it's about taking you on a journey in your mind, trying to familiarize yourself with the mind and the tricks that our minds play with us. And I was fascinated. I was hooked. So then I went on my own spiritual journey, and by the age of 50 or 55, I had sort of solved some of the big problems in my own life. And I thought, my God, can it really take 25 years to do this? It can't be that, you know. And I thought, I'm going to have to try and find something. From everything that I have learned, I would love to come up with something that would help other people do the work that I did, but faster.
Exactly. Now, so, you are giving me a shock. 25 years. Is it really going to take so long?
Well, I mean, it depends. You know, some of us have, you know, if you suffer from things like jealousy and possessiveness and control, these are things that you can acquire at a very early age. And if you address them at the age of 30, when they're embedded in your system, it can take a long time to learn new habits. So I think the thing is, what I've done with the 5 chairs is the 5 chairs behave as a mirror to anybody who is interested in looking at themselves and realizing that we come into the world with different qualities of behavior, different qualities of communication. Some are virtuous and others are toxic. So I think the 5 chairs, because they're 5 chairs with 5 colors, with 5 different animals, with 5 different names, and they represent 5 different types of behaviors. The message of the chairs is that, where are you sitting in every moment? Because if you're sitting in the red chair, which is the jackal chair, then that's where all the worst human behaviors are, where people are judging and complaining and moaning and groaning and procrastinating and gossiping, etc. And I think it's about, we all do this. The blame game is probably one of the worst and the biggest waste of time in life as well. And the 5 chairs is about, well, we all do all of the chairs. And you move from the red chair, which is the attack chair, which is the complaining and blaming, etc. You move into the yellow chair, which is the self-doubt chair, where we tend to become victims and victimize ourselves. And those are the 2 chairs that hold us back. Then you move into the green chair, which is the meerkat chair, the weight chair, where we take control of ourselves, we self-regulate, and we come into more logical thinking and more controlled behaving, and curiosity comes in, because if you're curious, then you stop judging, which is already a good start. So once you gain your sort of central presence, then you can move on to the next chair, the blue chair, which is the dolphin chair, where we're looking at, because these are all the colors of the chakras. We're moving from the red chair, which is the genital area, the yellow into the solar plexus, the green up into the heart. And I love this, the chakra of the voice, which is the dolphin chair, where we learn to speak our truth. We're not afraid to speak up. We're assertive. We believe in ourselves. We have our values. We defend our values. And I think this is a chair which so many of us need to develop. I mean, I come from the British culture, and the message I heard all the time was, children are to be seen and not heard. So I was a hedgehog most of my life. You know, it was, you don't disturb other people. But if you're brought up like that, you lose your voice. Mm-hmm. So I actually am married to my husband is from Palestine. Now he is a full-on dolphin. You know, he was born and brought up in a culture where he was fighting for his rights every day of his life. And I learned from him how to be assertive and how to speak about my needs and speak about my truths. And then the last chair is the giraffe chair, which is the chair of the heart. And the giraffe has the biggest heart of all land animals. And that's a beautiful chair. It's about empathy, you know, and so it's about, well, in any moment you can be, maybe you're empathizing, maybe you're being assertive, maybe you're being a jackal and you're criticizing and judging. So it's about, well, where am I? What am I doing? What am I saying? And what impact am I having on the world around me? Because, you know, if we're in the jackal chair and doing toxic behaviors, that's going to affect us above all, and then anybody else around us. And then we can bring toxicity into our environments, into our teams, into our families. So it's about, let's wake up a little bit and take more responsibility for what we're bringing into the world.
So true. I just love this concept, and I often want to refer this to help people understand in the most easiest way that you have aligned everything. There's so much in those 5 chairs, and how much of transformational learning it can have. Well, I think we have come to at the end of my meeting with you, and all this information is just amazing, Louise. Thank you so much for walking me through with all these aspects, managing your busy schedule, though you have, and even tomorrow. I was so worried. Anyways, thank you so much. Hope to see you.
It was lovely talking to you, Roshni, and carry on with all those beautiful practices that you have.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you take care.
Thank you.